Good morning. Let me just start by saying that I think I speak for everybody in the Commonwealth when I say that our hearts go out to every family and all the friends that were affected by the horrible tragedy and the act of terror that took place in Orlando on Saturday night. This one's particularly close to home for me. I actually spent some time last night talking to my brother, who's gay, as well as several other friends I have who are gay, and just said to them, how you feeling? And the answer I got, which I think is pretty consistent with the response you get from anybody in the LGBT community at the moment, was, I spend a lot of time thinking that things are getting better and that things are improving, and then we all discover that there are some people who just hate because of who we are. And there's no room for that here in the Commonwealth or anywhere in society. We should, of course, do all we can to resist that. I do want you to know, however, that here in Massachusetts, last night, we had an all-hands-on-deck call with public safety officials, national security officials, transportation officials, and other people involved in what I would call sort of planes, trains, and automobiles, to talk about any issues that might be relevant or directly attached to what goes on here in Massachusetts. And I certainly think most people know that anybody who's been to the airport over the weekend knows that security was heightened there over the weekend. They were doing spot checks on cars in and out of the airport. They had an increased armed guard presence at both curbside and within the airports itself. And they are taking all of this enormously seriously, and will continue to have an expanded and more visible presence over the course of the next few days. In addition to that, the folks on the transit system have significant increases in patrols and uniformed officers in and around both stations and the routes themselves, and on the trains. And Dan, Secretary Bennett and his folks have been in constant contact with the Fusion Center and the Joint Terrorism Task Force pretty much since this all broke on Saturday night. The one other thing I would say is we also reached out to some of the folks who are involved in all of the Pride activities over the course of this weekend and throughout the rest of this month, to make clear to them that if there are big events coming up or opportunities that they think we should know about or could be helpful to them, for them to let us know. And with that, I'm happy to take questions. I know the LG is, and so is Secretary Bennett.
Governor, what was your reaction to hearing that the shooter apparently referenced the Tsarnaev brothers during this 911 call?
Yeah, that was the first conversation that we had with Secretary Bennett, who had been discussing that with the folks at the Joint Fusion Center. At this point in time, there's no reason to believe that there's much to that, other than he referenced it as something that had happened. It does not appear that he has any direct connection to that at all, but obviously people are going to chase every lead and every bit of information, and frankly, until they have a chance to really dig into what's on his computer and get a chance to chase down whatever might be available through online processes, it's going to be hard to know the answers to everything. But I think at this point in time, there's no belief that there's any real and direct connection between him and the Tsarnaev brothers.
Have you gained any more clarity on how he referenced them specifically, the context of that?
Well, we do know, again, this is based on what Secretary Bennett got from talking to federal officials. We do know that he was, that he raised the Tsarnaev brothers a couple years ago, and that there were a series of interviews and discussions directly with him by federal officials, and that they concluded at that point in time that there was no direct connect between him and them at all.
Governor, in the wake of the Orlando shootings, your party's presumptive nominee, Senate President Obama, were led by a man that he's not smart, not tough, not smart, or he's got something else in mind. And that something else in mind, you know, people can't believe it. Are comments like that beyond the pale?
Look, I am thankfully not involved in presidential politics, and I think folks who are trying to use this horrible act, which is having enormously tragic consequences for dozens and dozens of people as a tool in any kind of political fight from any side are not thinking straight about this at all. At this point in time, the investigators need to do their investigation. The facts as they stand need to become available. I think everybody's agreed this is an act of terror. But with respect to sort of the ultimate motivation of this particular individual, let's have somebody take his laptop apart and a few other things and see what they can find out before we start drawing conclusions. And I think it's inappropriate and just a mistake at this point in time, especially for anybody, to be casting aspersions with less than perfect information. And I said before that I don't think Donald Trump has the temperament to be president. I stand by that comment.
Just along those same lines, he's up there, he's tweeting that, Donald Trump is tweeting that he was right on the radical Islamic terrorism and the Muslim ban. He's gonna be up in New Hampshire giving a big speech talking about this today. Can you say anything reacting to that or to counter that? Because he's gonna be talking about that today.
I think anybody who talked to anybody in the Muslim community yesterday would have found the same sense of profound sorrow and sadness about what happened that you found talking to anybody who had been paying attention to it at all. Look, I think this guy, based on early reports, hated with extreme prejudice people who are part of the LGBT community. I mean, that's the one fact I think everybody can agree on. I think beyond that, let's let the investigation go forward and see what comes of it. But I think to blame this all on some, there are literally millions and millions of Muslims in the United States. There are millions of Catholics. There are millions of Protestants. I don't think there's any evidence that we should be applying a broad brush to any big religious organization or religious community based on the acts of any 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 individuals in that community.
Governor, question here.
The sale of assault weapons is illegal in Massachusetts, but the manufacture of assault weapons is not. Would you consider expanding maybe so that assault weapons could not be manufactured in Massachusetts?
I think that's an issue for the investigation. My view at this point is we have the toughest, some of the toughest, and depending upon how you do the analysis, the most tough gun laws in the country, and I support them. We have an assault weapons ban here for a reason. And I think one of the questions that a lot of people are asking this morning is, how did somebody who had been investigated by the FBI, how did somebody who was known to the FBI end up being allowed to purchase a gun, especially that gun in particular in the first place?
Do you have confidence in the FBI that if something like that cropped up around here, that they would be in touch with local forces?
Well, remember, in Massachusetts, and again, this gets back to the nature of our gun laws, you start the process here by applying through your local police department. That all by itself is a significantly different step than you see in most other places, and I think for the most part, that most people would agree that that is certain as well.
Thanks,
Governor,